always felt that as time progresses and as human beings have progressed, that at some stage we'd get to a point where cancer is perhaps not so topical. It's very strange that still in 2018 we find high incidences of cancer. I'm not certain if we're ever going to find the answer to all of that. Raeesa Jogee is on the show today. She's been down the road multiple times. Raeesa, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Faizal.
I wanted to talk to you about your journey. And
Yes.
that's because I'm inspired sometimes by you knowing the challenges that you face. But at the same time, you seem to be very upbeat, very positive all the time. And a lot of people say that if you want to beat cancer, you need to keep it that way.
Yes.
So I want to talk to you about your life. Where
Okay.
did that start?
Okay. We can go way back. I'm actually a chartered accountant by profession, and in 2010, at the age of 27, my daughter was 2 years old at the time, and my son was 6 years old at the time.
You mentioned children, and for me, when I'm thinking about this, I kind of sense in anybody that has a life-threatening disease that one starts that discussion with children, thinking, what about the children? It's always about that. When people hear you've got cancer, they always, oh, but she's got children.
Yes.
So there's always that going on.
Yeah.
How do you relate to that?
Look, I think the reason that I'm actually alive, the reason that I'm here today, is because my children have always been my motivation. Children need their mother. A mother cannot be replaced. And I've always prayed and I've always asked that I just want to be healed just for my children, just to be there for them.
I know that sounds, and for me it looks like, and sorry to be blunt with you, but that's you putting up the defense and the brave face.
Yeah.
But what do you really feel about that? Because you cannot tell me that it doesn't cross your mind to know that this can sway the other way, and that one day you will not be with him.
Yeah, look, it's a reality, and it's something that I've had to kind of, if I have to think about the proper wording, it's something that I've kind of had to prepare them for as well.
But how do you deal with it?
It's very difficult. It's I don't think I even deal with it at times. You kind of tend to push it aside, but if you look into it, it's your worst nightmare basically.
Raeesa, your case is, in my view, very different. Yes. Because of the fact that you've been there a few times.
Yes.
Were they different occurrences, different types of cancer, and how did that come about?
Okay, so in 2010 I had breast cancer, and it was stage 3 at that time. So 2010
was your first bout?
Was my first bout of cancer, right, at the age of 27.
Wait, so stop there. So how did you find out, and what happened when you found out?
Okay, that was also a story on its own, because a year prior to that I had been to the doctor, and because I had felt a lump. And my aunt has cancer, and she's a nurse, and she said, you know what, please go and have it checked out, you know. And I went, and I seen the radiographers and was sent for a mammogram, and they actually wrote on the mammogram report, too young for mammogram, fatty tissue found. So I was actually misdiagnosed a year earlier, and the next year is when I was actually diagnosed, and I wouldn't say it was a shock, but I mean I was very disappointed in the fact that a year prior I had been turned away saying I'm too young for a mammogram, and here I was now sitting with a stage 3 cancer.
But what goes through the mind of somebody like yourself when you get that confirmation from a medical expert to say that you've got cancer? Because many people walk around going about their lives, doing their ordinary thing, and you were probably also doing that, and there's suddenly there's that, and when that happens, in my view, everything just stops. So what did you do on that day, and what were you thinking? Okay,
so they told me that I would get my results in a week's time, and that was on the Wednesday, and the Friday I get a call from the doctor saying that they need to see me that very same day, and that was 2 days later. And I thought, but you guys said a week, so I knew something was not two, two in place. So I spoke to my husband. I phoned him. He was at work, and I told him, please meet me at the doctor, because I think it's not good news. And we went in, and the doctor told me that your results have come back and your tumor is malignant. And I was okay with it, and at that time, and the doctor was prescribing me anti-anxiety medications and whatever, but
to just ease in that shock there.
Yeah, but I mean, we walked out of there, and my husband looks at me and he says, what does malignant mean? So it was actually, so I told him it's cancer. I said, Mujib, it's cancerous, So I think the shock for the family at that time was bigger than what it was for me. I'm a type of person that things always hit me afterwards. When I'm in that moment, when I'm whatever, like at that time, my feeling and what was going through my mind is cancer can be cured. So,
well, it can be.
Yes. So that was.
But you think about everything from a positive and negative perspective.
But at that time, strangely, I didn't, because I think I was trying to be strong for everyone else, because everyone else was crying, and they were all shocked, and it was like a blow for the family. And for me, it was like cancer can be cured. Until
so you go through the processes. You go for treatment.
The treatment is where it kicks. So that's when the realization came as to what a bigger battle this is that I've got to fight. So
describe a day for me. Describe a bad day. I mean, I'm sure you have your good days and you have your bad days. What does a bad day look like?
I'll explain to you the day when I went for my very first chemo.
Was that the worst?
That I would say it's one of the worst, because it was really a shock to my system. And I don't want this to sound to others out there as something negative, because it's not. You get over it. There are things you can do to get over the side effects. But for me, the first day that I went for chemo, I was all upbeat and I was positive, and my house was full of people, and we went for the chemo, and we came back and sitting on the stoop, and I'm playing Monopoly with my cousins.
Just after you came back?
Just after I came back from having my first chemo. And I sat with my cousins on the stoop, and we were playing, and my mom comes out and she says, are you feeling okay? And I'm like, yes. And she says, can I cook in the house? Because doctors warned us that when you cook in the house, the smells may make you nauseous, the smelling of the food. And I said, no, mommy, I'm feeling 100%. I'm not feeling anything. And she went in and she started cooking, and that when I just got that smell, that was it. I went in, I turned a channel in my life, and that was just the feeling that you get. It's a horrible, horrible feeling. I had to go to bed immediately.
Did you ever sit back at that time when you're in that abyss of that deepness where you're feeling ill, and you start getting moody and you don't want to talk to people, and
yes,
there's so many people around, and that happens? Did you ever feel in all of that why me? Did the why me question ever come up?
A lot. A lot.
What did you tell yourself? What was your consolation?
Look, I asked why me, right? And I said, I try to do good in my life,
Look, I must be honest, Raeesa.
Yeah.
I hear the story all the time.
Yeah.
And I hear the people saying, why do you ask that question? Because the Almighty should be sufficient and all of that. It's easier said than done.
It's easier said than done.
I'm now talking to a real human being that has a real issue.
There comes a time where you don't even pray, because you're just angry. You become angry at your Creator. That why did you do this to me? So I've actually gone through that point.
So you had more questions than answers.
Yes. So there were times when I was very, very low. At one point during the first phase of the chemo, the breast cancer, my mom actually she didn't know what to do, because she could see I was really depressed. I wasn't speaking to her. I was just, you know, sitting around having obviously all these questions and asking why me, and having a, we call it a pity party. So in the cancer community, so we call it a pity party.
Oh, right, I'm hearing something new.
Yeah, so we have a pity party. So I was busy having a pity party and feeling sorry for myself. And my mom actually called the Cancer Association of South Africa. And they came in, and the very same day I had a social worker as well as a nurse at my bedside, you know, and they gave me different coping mechanisms and tools, and it was actually that was something that was quite nice, and to lift the spirits. But that was one day that was where even my mom didn't know where to turn.
I think it's not the same thing, like for example, when someone passes away and then everyone is around, and when people's around and everyone's putting their words of encouragement, things go along and you think that you fit into the general scheme of things again. But the minute you retreat into the back spaces at night when you're alone and when the pains are there, that's where the trial really starts. You know?
Yes, and you
cannot be there all the time. You've got to wake up to the reality that the battle, you're alone in the battle.
Yes.
They might be there to support the battle, but you're really alone in the battle.
Yes. At the end of the day, it's you, and it's you that needs to do. I mean, there are times when you can't even eat, you know, you have no appetite, you're quite sick, and I mean, you need to motivate yourself when it comes to that.
Correct.
Yeah.
So you get obviously through the first bout of cancer.
Yes.
You then learned a life lesson. I'm sure you changed your outlook on life, taking things not for granted, that which you have in the past, and things change.
I actually came to the conclusion during that time that this has happened for a reason. I'm an accountant by profession, and I stopped altogether. I said, you know what, and I was studying some more at that time when I was diagnosed. I was actually writing exams at that time, and I told, I just changed the way that I did things. I said, I've got my kids at home, my priorities are different, you know. You can have all the money in the world, but to have a mother is something that I felt my kids needed. And I wanted to be the one to spread awareness about cancer, and about breast cancer in particular at that stage, and that you're never too young to have breast cancer, because at that time the general status quo was that you have a 10% chance of getting cancer under the age of 30.
So before we go to that area, I just want to look at your second bout. So life continues and is normal. You move on.
Yes.
When did the second shock come?
Okay, yeah, the second shock. Okay, so 2010 was the first one, right? So you're always on edge after that, thinking it might return, right? Because it was a breast cancer, so you think, okay, it might return in the womb, or it might return, because it normally returns in the ovaries or the other breast, or, you know, whichever part of the body. And I actually wasn't feeling well, and I actually went to see my urologist. And she looked at me and she said, but are you always this pale? And I said, no.
How long after that? Because that was 2010.
4 years. So it was 2014.
But how long did it take to come out of all of that? So you were diagnosed in 2010?
2010, you know, it was actually quite incredible, because in 2010, I was diagnosed in September. I was diagnosed in September. And in December, when I was done with chemo, I actually went to Dubai, and I had a wonderful time. So, but 4 years later was 2018. I was diagnosed with
were you at that moment expecting it?
No.
Or was it just another shock?
It was the biggest shock of my life.
Did you just not turn cold at that point? So
at that point,
again,
yes. And a totally different cancer. So it had absolutely nothing to do with the breast cancer.
So you in your mind were probably thinking, you know what, if I'm going to get it, it might be breast cancer. I've been through this again.
Exactly.
And I know what to do.
Yeah.
And here something else comes up.
And something totally different and so much more serious at that stage. It was actually acute myeloid leukemia, AML. And
Which is a good few notches up from where you were.
Yeah. It was
in terms of being more challenging,
because they were like, you need to go in and you need to pack a bag, come into hospital immediately. We need to do a bone marrow biopsy and we need to give you blood and we need to. And I called my mom and I'm like, Mommy, how do you do a blood transfusion? And she's like, no, they do it through a drip. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, again on the phone to Mommy, and I'm like, but Mommy, now they want to do a biopsy. How does this work, you know? And I was in shock. I went into, if I tell you, for a week, for a week, I was in shock. I was in hospital. I was admitted immediately, and I was in.
But then the kids have walked the first road with you.
With me.
Do you go back and inform them and say, here we go again?
We were very honest with them.
So they knew.
They knew.
Here we start again.
Here we go again.
Okay.
Well, How did they take that? The kids tend to. They take it obviously on a difficult. It's hard for them, you know.
Have they come to the point, or do you know that? Or you're aware perhaps that they know that they could lose you? Are they in touch with that?
Yes. I think my son is. I think my son is now 15 years old. So I think he knows the realities of the challenges that we are facing.
He expresses
and
that, you talk about it?
We talk about it, we're very open about it, and I feel that it's better not to hide it from them. So we walk the path together, because I've always felt that I needed to be real with my kids, both of them. Yesterday, we walked into a salon to cut our hair, my daughter and I. She donated her hair to cancer for wigs, you know, for them to make wigs, and she donated her hair. And we both had our hair cut because we're getting ready for going bald once again. So we speak to this lady, and she's doing my hair. And I start speaking about stem cell donation and what I've been through at the hair salon, yeah.
Because generally the person that's styling your hair,
yes,
they generally they're like a second psychologist.
Yes.
They generally start
yes.
talking about things.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And for me, I find wherever I go, I mean, I've been using Uber a lot and been driving around a lot and going places, and I'm always finding myself telling people, look, it's so easy to be a stem cell donor, why don't you? So I started speaking to her and explaining it to her, and I went back in time, the conversation obviously now went back, and we went to all these different cancers that I've been through. And she says to me, she says, you know, lady, you actually made my day. She says, today I walked in here and I've been crying the entire morning, and here you walk in here with your issues and you actually make my day, because I realize that what I'm going through is just not even
just the ordinary challenges,
yes,
of
life. And she says, you know, you're such an inspiration. And for me, I feel that when I do that, when I have that impact on somebody and I can be that inspiration, it to one person, I've done my job, you know.
But in that same vein, after you've been through the second bout, and we're going to talk about what happens after that again, but do you walk around perhaps in a shopping mall perhaps and look at people in general and just reflect and say, sometimes we fight about trivial things, and sometimes there's an argument going on about who parked in front of who and all of that.
Yeah.
You sit back thinking that
it's so,
if you should only know I mean, is that the question you
A lot. I find myself to be very, very patient. I mean, people drive around and whatever, and or they like, you know, standing in a queue, or they shouting at someone, you know, service providers in whatever way, you know. You maybe get these calls, which are obviously very irritating. We all know from the consultants that call you, you know, from all the different companies trying to sell you things. And then I hear people getting so angry and shouting at that person, and I'm like, for what? Like, you know, just tell them, sorry, I'm not interested, you know. And actually small little things in life. I mean, when you're driving and then road rage, I mean, why? You don't need all of that. I mean, you know, so it changes you.
But
you become a more patient person.
Doesn't that talk about the innate value of life? For example, it's the appreciation of life when, if you look at yourself, because your life has been at that edge of the cliff at some point, you're able to attach a value to that and say that it's precious because I could have lost it.
Yes.
Where these two people fighting in the road about their cars doesn't understand that value, and therefore could perhaps pull a gun on each other and put themselves in a life-threatening situation where you were really in a life-threatening situation that you needed to try to reverse. Here they would voluntarily put themselves in a life-threatening situation. That means we're talking about the understanding of value for life being not equal at all.
Not equal at all. And the thing is, actually, I love more. I love more. I'm more passionate. I'm more of a giving person. I give more of myself, you know. I always say the more cancers that I've got, the more I give of myself. And I think that's really been a gift. And I know it's a cliche, you know, where people that have cancer say that it was a gift. And I'm sitting here, I'm diagnosed at the moment, I'm doing chemo, and it's still a gift because I just love life so differently. I appreciate every single moment, every single day, every single person, you know. My mom is my most valuable asset, my kids, my family, you know, and it's just, it's difficult to
I find it amazing that you sound the way that you do, because you've been making me think throughout this episode that about all the things that I complained about this morning and things that I just superficially take as things that you do every day. But I'm thinking about the day that you go and sit with your doctor and your doctor says something that changes the course and the direction of your life, perhaps forever. Because it does change.
It does change.
I think that even if you get cured, and even you get cured again, it has changed the direction of your life forever, because the way that you see life is absolutely different to anybody else.
Totally different, yeah.
Raeesa, we're going to do another episode with you.
Okay.
I'm going to come back to you on another episode after this with Raeesa. There's lots to be learned about this. I want you to join me on that next episode, because I think that apart from what Raeesa's learned and the journey that we walked through there with her, there is a mission and a story that we need to understand in the next episode.